Hey everybody, it's Mr. Greg here from the Kindergarten Smorgasbord, and we're back with another Submissions for Smorgie Live. This month, I'm super excited that my friend Deedee Wills from Mrs. Wills Kindergarten is joining, and she is live all the way in Colorado, where I'm sure it is warm and sunny and beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I will let Deedee introduce herself, and then we'll get started with questions and answers. All right, so Deedee, take it away.
Take it away. Hi, I'm Deedee. I am a blogger at Mrs. Wills Kindergarten, kindergarten teacher, live in Colorado, live here with my husband. Actually, today it was like 65 degrees. It was so nice and warm. No jacket day, which was awesome. And that's basically it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. As always, we have some giveaways. So make sure you head over to my blog, thekindergartensmorgasbord.com, and get entered for the giveaways. We're giving away 1 year to ESGI. Deedee has agreed to give away her Writing Through the Year bundle that she has with Deanna Jump. And we'll give away a $25 gift certificate to my Teachers Pay Teachers store. So make sure to head over to the blog and get entered. And remember, you do have to be present in the live chat to win. So we'll do the giveaways right around 8 o'clock, right at the end of the show. And so make sure that you're here so that if we draw your name, you'll win some prizes. So as always, a big thank you to ESGI for sponsoring us every month and for always being so generous and supporting teachers. They're a great company. They have an amazing product that will save you hundreds of hours on assessments and data. But not only that, they truly love teachers and they want to help teachers and support teachers. So make sure to check them out and show them some love and support.
A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We kind of go over this every month. First of all, we have set a date on a go forward. Every month we're going to be doing these the third Wednesday. We just started that in the last couple of months. It used to kind of be just when we could fit them in, but we've decided it's going to be the third Wednesday of every month, so you can just mark your calendars to join us. Second thing that I always like to make a disclaimer. I do the absolute best that I can to get all the questions, but when we have 200 to 300 people in here asking questions, it's hard to keep up with them all. So if I don't get to your question, please bear with me. If it's something that's just burning and you really, really want to get the question answered, please just shout at me in the chat, do a little @Jason or something so that I know that you're talking to me. And also remember, this is not just about asking questions to Greg and to Deedee this week. This is also for you guys to collaborate together in the chat. We love to see you guys talking in the chat, sharing your ideas with each other as Greg and Deedee are talking tonight as well.
All right.
And we have had some questions again about where to go to enter. I did type it in the chat, but just remember you go to the kindergartensmorgasbord.com, click on the Rafflecopter link, and you only have to enter your name once. Once you enter your name, you are entered for all 3 drawings. You're entered for Writing Through the Year, you're entered for ESGI, and you're entered for the TPT gift certificate. So one time, and you're entered for all 3. Again, you must be live here in the chat in order to win. So I'm going to ask for you to say something back to me in the chat before we actually consider you the winner. Is that it?
That's it.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Awesome. Well, we've got some questions rolling already. So the first one is from Nikki Mason. She wants to know what writing program you use and when you started. She says her school doesn't have a program for kindergarten, so they tend to just kind of do their own thing.
So I used to do my own thing, and I will be completely honest that I was terrible, terrible, terrible at teaching writing. It was my weakest area. So I reached out to Deanna Jump and to Deedee about their Writing Through the Year units, and I started using those a year and a half ago, and it has made a tremendous difference in our writing. So I use Writing Through the Year, and I start mine, my first unit 1 in September. And then we try to do a unit a month as we go through the year. But it's Writing Through the Year. There are 8 units, and I can let Deedee talk a little bit more about it since it's hers. But I will say it has completely transformed my writing instruction, and my kids are amazing writers, and it's because I started using those units, and they're just so well laid out, and they make teaching writing so simple. So definitely check those out, and I'll let Deedee talk about her writing through the year.
Okay, thank you. So I used to be a horrible writing teacher. Like, I feel like I have to go back to those students that I taught before and say, you know, I'm really sorry. Taught to their second grade teachers, I'm really sorry. So somewhere along the line, I decided I need to really educate myself about writing instruction, what would be developmentally appropriate. So I started reading a lot of professional books. A couple books that I really recommend. One is by Matt Glover, and it's called Engaging Young Writers. It's an excellent book. It's really written for that emergent writer, ages pre-K to first grade. So students who are making meaning through illustrations because they don't have the transcription skills yet. So that was one book that I read that kind of formed my thinking around writing. And then a book came out by Katie Wood Ray called In Pictures and in Words. And that was like, as soon as I read that book, it was like a light went on. It completely made sense to me, because here you have students at the very beginning of the year who come in, who are still trying to figure out, you know, like, what's school thing all about? Which end of the pencil do I use? Students who don't know their colors. I mean, there are, just like in my classroom, probably your classroom, a wide range of ability. And so what was really helpful in this book was talking about how students can make meaning through illustrations. And when you study the work of illustrators, especially early on in kindergarten, when you study the work of illustrators, you can glean composing ideas, big ideas about composing. And those are the things that you teach your kindergartners right at the beginning of the year. So I had this in my head, along with sort of other ideas. And then we did a blog book study on my blog and several other blogs, where we each took a chapter and looked at different books. And then we kept getting questions. Can you please tell me how you do writing? And it's writing is hard to teach, because it's not a linear process, and not every student steps into it in the same way. And so you don't want to teach it in a linear way, like, in order to write, you have to do this, 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 and this, because that's not the way everybody writes. So you have to give lots of different ideas, because every student steps into it in a different way. So we wrote the lessons as scripted, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, all the way through. There's 4 weeks in each unit, so you have enough for the whole year. But ideally, you would not teach them identically in that order year after year. There's sort of like a recipe book that you do this on day 1. Like, if you've ever been on a diet, you know, like, there's day 1, day 2, day 3. But after a while, you start to switch those recipes around, and you're like, you know what, I don't really feel like eating chicken today. I'm going to eat roast beef. And so you take that recipe. But instead, you're looking at the needs of your classroom and say, instead of saying, today I'm going to talk about this particular lesson, my class really needs this. So you pull in lessons from all over, but you have lessons that are scripted there for you if you're not comfortable with how to teach that particular concept. So that's how we started it out. I taught them alongside teaching my class, so they were done with my class as kind of like my little guinea pigs. But what I found was that writing was their favorite subject. It used to be like, because I didn't enjoy teaching writing, my students didn't enjoy learning to write. As soon as I enjoyed teaching it, it was like their favorite part of the day. We did it every single day. And when we missed it, they complained, so.
Yeah, and I found that too. Like, my kids now love to write, and now they're engaged in writing. They're writing the whole time, and now they're loving it. Because I'm, like you said, I felt better teaching it, and so they're loving it because I'm loving it.
Okay, moving on to our next question. What type of schedule, how often for writing would you recommend for a half-day kindergarten program? This is from Jessica.
I think writing should be every day, even if it's just a few minutes. I know a half-day schedule is, I can't even imagine. Yeah. Like, I get all sweaty just thinking about only having a half day with my kids. But I would think that you should try to squeeze in some writing every single day. I think it's that important, and I think they need it, that exposure and that practice every single day. So, I mean, it may be 10 or 15 minutes, but I would try to get writing in at least a little bit every day.
And
I would agree.
Maybe you can piggyback off of that. Rhonda says that they do a creative writing block daily, and they've been working on how-to writing. So how do you feel about writing daily, and how do you get students engaged in that writing process?
Go for it, Deedee.
Okay, I'm going. Okay, so how do we get them engaged in the writing process? It really starts at the very beginning of the year. You know, you have some students who are all about writing, they can't wait. Some students who are a little bit more reluctant. What I have found is the students who are most capable of writing tend to be the most reluctant to write at the beginning of the year because they want to know if it's right. Like, is this right? Is this right? And so as soon as we can kind of, it takes about 20 days for me to say, you know, like cut the cord. Like, it's okay, baby. You just try your best. Just try your best. And they don't think I know how to spell anything because they, well, how do I spell? I'm like, I don't know. Just try your best.
No.
So they don't. I don't know. So once you sort of release them to your best attempts are going to be brilliant. I can't wait to see what you do. As soon as you release that power into their hands, I don't really have a lot of reluctant writers. I have some students who are just kind of defiant because they are. And so they kind of dig in and like, I don't know, I'm going to write about. So we kind of deal with that particular issue. But most of the time, usually by the time we get into October, they're all for it. So whatever type of writing we're going to attempt in the classroom, whatever genre, they generally jump on board. I don't make my students write. First of all, I don't give them prompts in Writer's Workshop. They write about whatever they want to. And then I don't make them write in a genre. But if we get towards the end of that genre unit of study and they haven't attempted it, then I'm going to nudge them and say, listen, you know, I know you seem to really like to write about Batman. So let's write about, now we're going to do an all about book. Do you think you could do something all about Batman or how to? Do you think you could write maybe how to be a superhero? Something that's going to keep their interest, but at the same time be in that genre. Okay, now I'm going to be quiet.
Deedee, another question for you. Do you think a teacher could start using your unit in the middle of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I would, if it depends on where you're going to start, depends on where you are in your writing instruction day. So if you haven't been doing Writer's Workshop, then I would really suggest looking at the earlier units because they help talk you through that process of what do you do for procedures, what do you do for reluctant writers, what do you do those kind of housekeeping things. And then Unit 2 is really about working into making books, which is, I'm sorry, every year when I do it, I think this is the worst idea. This is going to be horrible because I lose control. When you give them the power to make books, then you sort of take away your own control over like being the paper controller, which is kind of like powerful. It's like, I like being the paper controller. So when I give them the books, it's nice to have a tool that you could do to say, you know, follow this procedure. But you can, so I would recommend, I don't know if I really answered the question. If you haven't done Writer's Workshop, I would do Unit 1 and then I would do Unit 2. But the product you get would be very different. The product you would get from a writer in September and October would be very different than the product you would get from a writer now. But it would help walk you through that thought process behind the way that we do things.
When I first started using the writing through the year, I started in February and I started with Unit 1 because we'd never done the Writer's Workshop model. And so, and I knew we were struggling with writing. So I started right at the beginning, went back to the basics, and it worked out great. We skipped through a lot of the lessons because we didn't need them. So we went through the units a lot quicker. But starting at Unit 1 in the middle of the year was perfect for my class that year.
Great. That's good to hear because that's what I would do, but that's great. I mean, you like lived it.
Yeah.
Testimonial. Awesome.
So we've got some chat going on in the chat box about thinking maps. Do you guys use thinking maps? And if so, how do you use them?
So our district is a thinking maps district. And so we are mandated to use them. It is a district mandate. So I use them a lot in my class as far as like to organize our thinking, and that's how we record a lot of our learning when we're doing informational text. And you start to see my kids naturally will use those as they're writing a lot, especially when we're doing informational writing or all about books. They just naturally gravitate towards the thinking maps because it already has their thinking organized. In the past, I have used the thinking maps, and then I've had the kids writing specifically from the thinking maps. But now that's not something I do, but the kids use them naturally on their own.
I use thinking maps really in more of a response to literature than I do for Writer's Workshop. Although, like you say, All About Books is perfect how-to books because you have to kind of see all those pieces before you can put them in order, so it helps to organize the thoughts. So absolutely responding to literature, responding to informational text. Those thinking maps are very helpful.
And my kids love the thinking maps. Like they ask every day if we can do a tree map. Like if we could do everything in a tree map, my kids would be super engaged all day, every day.
What's for lunch? Let's do a tree map.
Okay, let's do a tree map.
Do you have your students do a how-to story when you're teaching the units?
Yes. And I'm not sure exactly what unit it is, but there is a how-to writing unit. I'm not sure what the number is. But
I think it's 4.
Yeah, so we do how-to writing. I always start off with the peanut butter and jelly or the peanut butter sandwich. So I have the kids tell me how to make a peanut butter sandwich, and I write down everything they say, exactly how they say it and when they say it. And then I get out all of these supplies, and I make this peanut butter sandwich exactly like they tell me to, which usually ends up with me covered in peanut butter and bread. And at the end, I get to eat whatever this mess that we've made. And then, which is great, that leads that into that conversation about thinking about how to teach people things. And so we start with the peanut butter sandwich, and then we start brainstorming things we know how to do. And then the kids, they write, and then of course we're doing a lot of refining and working on putting in all the steps and the directions. My favorite how-to writing that I've had so far has been how to dance. And so last year I had a little boy, and he danced all day, every day. And so he wrote how to dance, and his was how to dance. First, you get the beat. Second, you dance. 3, and then last, you stop. So he taught me how to dance. Now, if only I could get the beat, I would be a great dancer.
That would be nice if you would.
But I can't get the beat. So yeah. So we do. We unit 4 is how to writing. So they're actually teaching us how to do something.
Yeah. It's funny because I just today something, you know, like on Facebook things pop up like this time in history, and there was one that I had posted 2 years ago on how to make a hamburger. So I just did you see that on my Facebook page? I'm like, oh, I think it was today. Anyhow, I've shared that. So yeah, we do how-tos. In fact, Deanna also shared somebody had written and sent to her how to make a pizza. It was precious. So yeah, we do the how-to units, and students generally will attempt one in cooperation with us, and then we invite them to do it on their own. But I love the ones that are even beyond, you know, how to be a superhero is always fun, how to catch a bad guy, how to do a somersault, and then they try to get me to do it, and it like never ends well. So even if the directions were perfect, it wouldn't end well. But anyhow, yeah, we do them. We love them.
And they always turn out so fun and cute. Like the kid, they do it. I think it's one of the harder things for them.
Yeah.
They always turn out so cute and so fun.
They're fun. They're fun.
So we've had conversation in the chat ever since we began the broadcast at the top of the hour about Lucy Calkins' Readers and Writers Workshop. Lisa wants to know if you're familiar with them, and how do you incorporate those guided groups with Workshop?
With
go for it, Deedee.
Okay. Well, you know, first of all, Lucy Calkins is sort of like the Mother Teresa of teaching. I mean, she is like the original amazing. I find her teaching to be, her theories to be very, I want to say, like kind of organic. You know, I have her books right over here, The Art of Teaching Reading, The Art of Teaching Writing. And so I think it was probably one of the first books I ever read as a teacher. They were, you know, like those really thick books, The Art of Teaching Reading. So, yeah, I mean, I love listening to her think. So how do I incorporate groups? I guess the question would be small groups is what I'm thinking. So yeah. How do you incorporate small group reading? How do you incorporate small group writing? I have a reading block in which we do a whole group reading activity. on one shared text. We do the same text Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And that is a whole group reading comprehension. I'm doing the reading work, they're doing the thinking work, and then we're responding. So that's our reading workshop. And then I have small group guided reading, in which it's a level text. It's at their instructional level, in which we are applying new skills. Some of the skills we talked about in our whole group, some of them perhaps we're not. Maybe we're doing word study, and perhaps we're doing all of those things together. And so I do a guided reading and a whole group reading instruction. And then for small group writing, I often will do, in my guided reading, one day I'll do word work with that group. It's called Guided Reading Plus, really. So one day with that group, I'll meet with them. I'll do word work, introduce a text. The next day I meet with them, we'll do the same text, and we'll do a reading response. So there's a little bit of interactive writing being done in a small group. So I hope that makes sense.
And I do the same, kind of the same thing. Like I have my reading block. And so we have about an hour for guided reading. And so that's when we're doing the level text. We do some word work. We're working on the skills and the strategies. And at the end, we always do a little bit of writing. And it's usually in response to the story that we were reading. And then I have a separate 45-minute writing block. And that's when we do our writer's workshop. And so we usually have the little mini lesson. Then the kids go off, and majority of the time is spent with them doing their independent writing. And while they're writing, I like to walk around and I kind of chat with them a little bit about what they're writing about, which helps me because when they come up and we sit down to work together, I already kind of have an idea of what they're writing about. So I'm able to help them better. And then when they finish, I try to work with them one-on-one as much as possible. I don't generally get to see every kid every day for writing, but at least every other day I'll see everybody, and we'll work one-on-one with their writing and work on improving their writing and really working on, right now we're working on hearing more of the sounds and not the first sound in the beginning or the first and last sound.
Right.
So yeah, so small group, we do our guided reading groups, and then for writing, it's not small group writing, but it's more one-on-one conferencing with them.
I would, if anybody's interested, I would love to talk about, and maybe now is not the time, but how I do conferring, because it's been a hard thing for me to juggle. So I'd be happy to talk if there's a question about conferring.
Okay.
Okay. So Marina wants to know from both you, Greg, and Deedee, how many times do you meet with the group in a week?
It depends on the group. I don't see my highest group as often, but I will see my lower groups more often. I see, and I was explaining this, I had visitors in my classroom today, and I was explaining to them, Monday and Tuesday, I would generally see every group. Then the rest of the week, it's more flexible, and I may not see the whole group, but I might see one or two kids from that group. So it's going to be more either one-on-one with that kid, or it might be just me and two of the kids. Jason was raising his hand. I thought he had a question.
No, I was scratching.
Talk about how many kids he sees on a
yes. How many groups do you see?
0.
You see Lily, and for me, I see my below basic students, so my intervention kids. I met with that group every day, and then my students who are approaching, those who are not quite at grade level but look like they were gonna achieve it, I would try to meet with them 4 times a week. And my students who are on grade level or exceeding expectations, I would meet with them 2 to 3 times a week. I have in each group, I have 4 to 5 students, 20, 25 kids, depending on, I know some people have an assistant. Wouldn't that be amazing?
What's that?
I know. I had a guinea pig for a long time, and she was like awesome, but she didn't really meet with small group. But if you have an assistant, then of course you could meet with groups more often. But I would recommend having an assistant, unless they are like a title teacher or a reading specialist. I would have them meeting with your students who are meeting expectation or exceeding expectation, because they don't need the expertise as a teacher would offer. So that would be what my recommendation would be.
Don't forget to head over to the blog to get entered for tonight's giveaways. We're giving away 1 year to ESGI. Deedee and Deanna are giving away their Writing Through the Year bundle. And we'll give away $25 to my Teachers Pay Teacher store also. So make sure to head over to the blog, thekindergartensmorgasbord.com, and get entered. You have about 20 minutes to get entered for the giveaway.
And a reminder, you only have to enter once. Once you enter, you're entered for all 3 drawings. So you only have to enter one time.
Okay, so a little side note on entering. I've been entering every day to the HGTV Dreamhouse giveaway. So I've been entering twice a day. So I fully expect to win. Just a little heads up on that one.
If you win, can we come over for a housewarming party?
Yes, totally. So, side note.
We've been wanting to come to Colorado anyway, so good.
Well, you can come here. The house is, I think it's in North Carolina. So, but you know, we could have like the summer home and the winter home. It'd be
perfect.
Cool.
Oh, okay, perfect, cool. So you brought up conferring, Deedee, and I got conversation going in the chat, such as how you do it and how long. So people are saying that they've taken on your way of doing it and completely changed their writer's workshop.
Yay!
We did have a comment from Tony who said that he thinks we have to be careful with conferences because too much conferring with the same kids may indirectly lead them to rely on adult direction to generate anything.
Totally right.
If you found on that a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah. So, you know what? Okay, so I'll talk about how my conferring journey. Okay. So when I first started doing writing conference, I did them because somebody said you have to do writing conferences. I'm like, okay. So I go and I'd sit down and I'd listen to a student. They would read their story and it'd be like, 7 years ago, and you're still sitting there 15 minutes later, and then you just walk away and you go, okay, thanks, baby, that was awesome. And you walk away because you're just completely overwhelmed. You're thinking about lunch. I'm not focused. The student isn't focused. So for about a year, honestly, don't tell my principal, but that was what my conferences looked like. They were just sort of like a little conversation. It was great visiting with you, knuckle bump, keep going. And then I realized that I need to be more purposeful. And so I needed to have some thinking time. Like for me, I always say that I'm more like a crock pot than I am a microwave. I need a little more time. So what I have my students do, and I don't have a visual for you, but I'll use my hands, so that probably won't help at all. But let's say that you are my students I'm going to meet with on Tuesday to confer with. I have 5 students I usually confer with each day. So let's say I'm going to meet with you on Tuesday. On Monday, when we're finished with Writer's Workshop, I'm asking you to hand me your folders. So those 5 students I'm going to meet with on Tuesday hand me their folders. And during my prep time, which is really like when I'm watching TV at home, I go through the folders and I get an idea of where they stand as a writer, where they lie on the continuum, and I look for their next step. So I have a couple of ideas. I jot some notes down to myself, some possible goals. Tuesday morning, I'm going to meet with them very, very briefly. I'm going to set goals with them. And I'm going to go up to Allison. I'm going to say, Allison, baby, I love the way that you are drawing pictures with such details. I can tell this is you because it looks like you. And I'm just really excited about this. But I'm hoping that maybe we could work on putting some more sounds down so that I could read the words. So let's have our words match our pictures. And Allison says, okay, Mrs. Wills, and off she goes. And then I meet with, let's say I met with Greg, and I'm like, Greg, you know what? I'm loving your sentences. They're beautiful, but I'm thinking that you can tell more. You're writing one sentence, but I think you're ready to tell more on the sentence. And so I would like to see more than one sentence for each picture. I'd like to have more details. Okay. Great, Mrs. Wells, I'll go do that. And then I say, Jason, because Jason, you're in this too. I'm going to say, Jason, I love your sentences, but sometimes it's hard for me to read because there's not spaces between the words. So do you think that maybe we could add those? And he says, yes, 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 Mrs. Wells. So off they go. So Tuesday, I do a little goal setting with my 5 students. Let's pretend like I just went through 5. And then on Wednesday is when I really sit down and confer with these students. So on Wednesday, I meet with Allison, and I see is she putting down words like I asked her? Does she know what I'm talking about? Do I need to do more reteaching, or does she just need a little nudge? She just needed a little nudge, and then I would give her another goal. And I meet with Greg, and Greg is doing a beautiful job of telling more. And I'm just going to encourage him, because that's a big step, just to continue to tell more. And then Jason, he almost has this, bless his heart, but we're going to keep working on that. So Jason, let's keep working on that. Okay. So, and you have to keep bringing back these same skills over and over again. Jason, I'm sorry. He's really good. I tried so hard. But you have to keep bringing these skills back, because once they have that skill and then you ask for another level of difficulty, you know, so they start to throw that away. They're no longer capitalizing, or they're no longer putting the spaces between the words. So when they add, when their brain goes to another part of the writing process, sometimes they forget those other things, so you have to kind of keep bringing those back. So that's how I confer. I confer with 5 students. On Wednesday, my 5 students that I confer with are going to be my sharers. So they know they're the person, they're going to be the person who's standing up there. And then I can also kind of embolden them to talk about things in a general process. So one time, this is don't do as I do. Okay, this is don't do as I do. So the student sat up and talked about, she did this writing book about this number of hearts. It was like around Valentine's Day, and it was like, I see 7 purple hearts and I see 8 purple hearts, and so she's just going on and on. I said, oh, I love how you, you know, you had, every page was about these hearts and you're counting them. I don't know, I said something stupid like that. Guess what every single book that I had for the next 2 weeks was about? It's about damn counting hearts. So what I should have said, what would have been a better thing for me to say was, you know what I'm noticing is that when you're writing like an author does. So authors will write about things in numbers, or they'll do alphabet books, or, you know, all instead of about hearts, because you get 7,000 purple hearts. So I don't remember the person who mentioned that, beware of conferring. I don't remember that person's name. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's so, the words that you use are very important, because you want them to be more about the process of writing and less about the product of writing. So it's not about, I love this piece that you wrote about you going to the park with your mom, because guess what next piece they're going to write about is about going to the park. So
and you're going to write about going to the park. And cheese.
Yes. So it is, you have to think about your conferring message to them is really about the process of writing and not the product that they've written about.
Yeah.
Does that help? Okay.
Yeah. I kind of, I do it a little bit differently. When a lot of mine, the kids will come and they just sit down and they'll just read me their writing, and I've got my little post-it note, and I just write down what they tell me the story says, because it's their writing, it's their story. So what they tell me it says, and then we might pick out a word or two and work on that word. We might talk about finger spaces, capital letters, punctuation, and then later on in that week, or maybe even the next week, I might sit down with them and really work really explicitly on some of that, like maybe stretching out those sounds. But a lot of times I just like to hear them read their writing and just share with me what they've written. And then for sharing, I know Deedee mentioned sharing. I have volunteers. So if I ask the kids at the end of Writers Workshop, I'm like, okay, we have 2 or 3 minutes. Who wants to share their writing? And whoever wants to gets up on the stage and they get to share their writing.
All right. So how do you get your students to stop copying after you model?
Well, sometimes at the beginning of the year, I don't really worry about it too much, because at least they're writing and they're making an effort. What I'll do now is, if I notice that we're having that issue, I might just like if I've modeled on chart paper, I might just flip the chart paper over just so it's not there for them to copy. They might write about the same idea, but at least they're not copying directly from my modeling.
And I think, you know, I have the same problem where I'll have at the beginning of the year, you know, you have those students who so are interested in being correct.
Perfect.
They're not ready to be risk takers. So they're going to want a copy. They want something there. And at first, you know what, that's okay. But we work really hard on being risk takers, and that it's okay not to be perfect. And, you know, I had students who said, oh my gosh, I went to California too, and I had pancakes on the beach with my mom. And I'm like, okay.
No, I don't think you did.
For sure that didn't happen. But so sometimes they just need to have a little more confidence built in them. So you might say something like, well, what do you think? Okay, Greg, you're frozen. Am I frozen? Uh-oh. I'm just going to keep talking, pretending like, uh-oh. You were frozen. You were frozen, like in a freaky smile at me.
For some reason, my Google, it crashed all of a sudden. But anyway, keep going.
Great. You had like the Joker look. It was scary. But once my students start to, I have it saved on my screen just so you know. Once my students start to understand that they can be risk takers and that it doesn't have to be perfect and we just do our best, the copying really isn't an ongoing issue for us.
All right, so that kind of got me off track here with my questions with the little ad.
That's never happened before, by the way. That's the first time that it's ever done that.
All right.
I'm going to broke out with sweat. I'll put on more lotion. That'll make me feel better. I'll just smell my lotion. Okay.
It rubs the lotion on his skin.
Oh my gosh. So this comes up every single month. We always talk about this, the no tables, no desks, every single month. So it's perfect this month because it totally incorporates into one of the questions that always comes up as well. So everyone's very interested in both of y'all's takes. You like that Southern y'all? Both y'all's takes on where do your kids write? Because you know that your kids have no tables, no desks. So where do they write, Greg?
So my kids, what we do for writing is we have clipboards. And so they're doing all of their writing on the floor. So they've got their clipboard, a lot of them. And it's funny because like 1 week they won't use the carpets at all. But now this week, everybody has their carpets out. So my kids are doing all of their writing on the floor on the clipboards. And it's interesting to watch because there's a lot of research that talks about kids laying on the floor, and it improves handwriting because it's forcing them to use their muscles more appropriately, and it helps with handwriting. So it's interesting to watch at the beginning of the year. A lot of my kids just naturally will sit up and work on their writing. And as the year progresses, you start to see more and more of them automatically, like just naturally laying on their stomach. And so my kids are writing on the floor with their clipboards. Of course, in my classroom, we don't have tables or desks, but we do have, like we have our trampoline, we've got our swimming pool, we've got the stage, we've got the big red comfy chair. So you'll also see them sitting in those places, but everything's done on the clipboards on the floor.
So in my school, I had desks. It took like an act of Congress just for me to get my teacher desk out of my classroom. So to get the student desk, I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. So my students have their desks that they can sit at, but I also have other areas in the classroom where they can go. So I have like the writing station, which has a tabletop. They can write at my desk. I have the stamping, fine motor station, different areas where they can go. Some students really need to be working. My experience has been some students do better when they work in a pod of students, and some students do better when they have some space between them. So I had one student who was a great writer, but when he was in a pod, I mean, it was a party. So I said, let's find a spot where you think you could do your best work. And so he self-selected a spot, and it wasn't a punishment. It was just like, I'm kind of noticing that this might be helpful for you. And so he just went there every day. As the year progresses, they earn the right to pick their writing spot. So they can, usually about unit 3, so 3rd month into school, I'll let them select their spot, which generally is kind of all over the place. The only thing that I ask is that when they're there, they're working. And if they are having a hard time working, then I ask them to go back to their spot. And then the next day we give it another try. But most of the time, like you, I notice they're laying on their stomach. We very rarely sit at our desks. It's just a place to keep our stuff. But most of the work that we always do is at the carpet, at my small group table, or around the room working with partners. So very rarely are desks used. It's just a place for us to put our stuff most of the time. I would say my students sat at their desks probably maybe a total in an all day, maybe a fifth of the day. I mean, it was just very briefly, go back to your desk, let's get ready for lunch, get your stuff out, that kind of thing. So,
and there's so much research that talks about giving kids that choice and how much that helps their creativity. So even if you don't go, no tables or no desks, at least give them the choice of where they want to sit while they're writing, and that will just help their creativity.
Or when they're reading, or when they're responding to literature, or when they're working with a mock partner, all of those things really help. Now, one thing I do for crowd control is that I ask them to select a spot and to stay there.
Yes.
Because I have the attention span of a gnat. Like, I get really impatient if they're roaming the room trying to find, and everybody wants to find a spot. And so I'm like, okay, you select your spot, and that's where you stay. And if we need to reassign it later, we will. But you got to get there fast. Otherwise, you know, it's like a
they're like zombies. They just roam around the room.
Yeah, for real.
And, yeah, I tell my kids, like, once you sit down, you're glued and you're stuck. So there's no getting up and being zombies. Yeah. Real quick, you have 5 minutes to head over to the blog to enter the giveaway. So make sure you head over to the kindergartensmorgasbord.com and get entered for the giveaway. So we've got giveaways from ESGI. Deedee's giving away her Writing Through the Year bundle, and I'll give away $25 to my TPT store.
Okay, so you both have been to Ron Clark, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Deedee, have you been to RCA?
Yes, I have. I went for the 2-day conference.
Okay, so a couple people have asked about what your experience was like, what your takeaway was. Greg, we know that you went recently and had a blog post about it. For those that may have missed the blog post, can you just kind of hit the major highlights really quickly for us?
A couple of my takeaways were the passion of the teachers. You could really, you could tell that the teachers loved what they were doing. You could tell that they loved the kids. My other big takeaway was just getting to talk to the kids, and what at Ron Clark, they make one of their big things with their kids is teaching them how to be good conversationalists. And so you could really sit down and carry on conversations with the kids. And the kids would just approach you and introduce themselves and start asking you questions. So it was
confidence.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, and they work really hard on it. And that's one of those expectations that they have. So it wasn't just us going to the kids and asking questions about the school, but the kids approaching us and wanting to know about us. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is you could tell, but without asking, what kids were still in the 5th grade and 6th grade because of the questions they would ask. Yeah. I remember a little boy, he asked me 3 times in a row why I was at Ron, like what I hoped to learn while I was there. And every time I tried to give him a different answer. And then when you talk to the 8th graders, like you could really, you could carry on really in-depth conversations, and like you would answer, like you would respond to them, and they would ask you questions to get you to come, expound on your answers. So those were my big takeaways. And just little practical things, like Ron Clark talks about keeping your arms above your heart when you're teaching. And he talked about, like, there's dust falling. We have to keep the dust off of our kids. And so I've been very aware of that this week in my classroom, like trying to keep my arms up. And I was doing it during calendar when we were doing our calendar today. And I noticed every time I put my arms up and got my arms going, the kids got louder and got more into calendar. So just little practical things like that I brought back also.
Mm-hmm. I'm like you, having the student conversations were, the students were just precious. Just wonderful to talk to, very polite. I remember speaking to one boy who I later talked to, Hope King, who teaches there, and she said that I had this wonderful conversation with him in the bookstore, and she said, you should have seen him the first day. He was sick because he was so nervous about talking to people. So what a life skill. First of all, they teach like life skills of how to have a conversation, how to look somebody in the eye, how to be confident, how to know when you don't know. The other thing that there's several things that impressed me. The academic rigor is insane there. I was like, please don't ask me any questions because I have no idea how to even solve that equation.
Yes, when they send the kids to you to try to solve the equation, and if everybody gets it right, you get to dance. I was like, don't come to me. No. I have no clue what's happening in this class.
I know. The academic rigor was insane. And the pace in which those students needed to be, two. One, the pace in which the students were working, and then the pace in which the teacher was working. There was not one wasted second. The energy level was so high. I think oftentimes, I've had days where, I can't find something, like I prepped it and I had it here and I'm looking, and that 3 seconds or 5 seconds where you're looking for something, you lose so much. And there's absolutely none of that. I mean, I don't know if there's never any of that, but it sure did seem like the expectation was high energy. The teachers were prepared. What else impressed? I mean, just the physical location. I mean, it's just amazing.
Oh, right. The school itself is beautiful.
It's so amazing. The amount of love that the teachers have for their students is genuine. I mean, I loved them. I was there for 2 days, so I can't even imagine working them day in and day out. First of all, middle school, that's like crazy town.
Yeah.
But the love and the amount of energy that they put into that school, into their students, it's impressive. I've read all of Ron Clark's and Kim Bearden's books, so I kind of had a little bit of background knowledge. So if you haven't read any of their books, there's not one I could recommend over another, but they're all amazing. I don't know, pretty inspirational. I loved it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
I was exhausted. I was like exhausted. Yeah. Like exhausted.
By about 2 o'clock, I was like,
yeah.
Woo. But yeah, I was exhausted, but it was a good experience.
Yeah.
So let's get back to writing for a little bit before we start doing some of the giveaways. Do you teach correct letter formation, touching the lines, etc.? That question is from Janet.
At the beginning of the year, we explicitly teach handwriting. So we teach every letter during our ABC boot camp. And then as the year goes on, of course, I'm trying to always model good handwriting and correct letter formation. But it's not something that I'm calling the kids out on and focusing on as the year goes on. And I know with Deedee's writing units, they use just single lines. So they don't have like the 2 lines and the dotted line in the middle. And I've found when we're using the single lines, the kids actually have better handwriting. When like on our calendar, on some of our calendar, we have the lines and then that crazy dotted line in the middle, and they'll either write really small at the bottom or really small at the top, or like one letter is big and then the rest are this big. So I have found that using just single lines really helps their handwriting, because they're not focused on trying to get to all the lines, and that dotted line seems to throw them off. But I do explicitly teach the letters at the beginning of the year, letter formation. And it's something I keep an eye on, and we, I'll talk about it. And if I see a lot of kids doing a letter a certain way, like we'll go back and talk about it and work on it.
I was just going to say something, then I coughed. I'm sort of the same way. We do the same thing. We introduce the letters and sounds at the beginning of the year, kind of whip through those pretty quickly early in the year, and then reinforce them. During Writer's Workshop, we don't really address writing letter formation at all, only if it's interfering with meaning. I'm saying, I think we could work on making these letters a little neater because it's hard for me to read. It's hard for your readers to read. So, and we always go back to the message of, or the purpose of writing is so that others can read it. So as long as you ground every lesson and conferring and why do we write so people can read it and make meaning from it, then I feel okay. We have lots of times when we do some kind of handwriting, not really handwriting, but like in the morning, I had this morning work where they cut apart a sentence, they put it in the order, then they write it. So at that time, it's a one sentence. I ask that those letters are formed correctly. So I will send them back and ask them to work on that correctly. Because they're not working on composing, they're working on writing, copying a word. So the thought of composing isn't there, which is using a different part of their brain. So it just takes time for students to gather that handwriting skill, and not all of them come with that small fine motor strength. So. Yeah,
and for a lot of them, it's the fine motor that causes them to be a little bit slower at forming the letters, and that's just something that takes time.
Yeah.
HZE, there's not a name, that's just their username is HZE. Wants to know, how often do you do running records?
We have to do running records every 9 weeks, formal running records every 9 weeks for report cards. Then we do informal. I usually do them every couple of weeks. So, and then if I have a question about a kid, like if I think somebody's really made some growth, I'll pull them quickly and we'll do an informal running record. But every couple of weeks, I try to get some informal running records in. But again, it's one of those things that's pretty flexible. So if I want some quick data on a kid, if I want to see how much they've grown, I'll do an informal running record. But formal running records, they have to be done every 9 weeks for the report card.
We and in our district, we did running records. Well, if you're asking like how often does one particular student get a running record, I'll tell you how I did them. Maybe that will help. So when I start small group, they do at the very beginning of the small group guided reading. They'll do a familiar read. All the students at the table are doing a familiar read book that they had in their book bag. And I'll come up and I'll do a real quick running record. So that might be on Jason because he's excellent. Jason, you're an excellent reader, and I did a running record on you.
I can't write, but I can read.
And then I'll do an introduction, a book introduction, and as we are doing a cold read, I will select a different student and do a running record on that student. So I do a familiar read and I do a cold read. And then the next time I meet with that group, I will pick two different students, rotating them through. So I would say I get to every student I get a cold read and a familiar read, every student within a 2-week cycle. And then we had, our district used the DRA, which is a type of running record. It's a level text DRA, comprehension, blah, blah, blah. And so we did that. We did one in December, one in the spring, and one at the end of the year.
Yeah, we use Fountas and Pinnell as our running.
Perfect. Yeah, same deal. Perfect.
So do either of you use Dibbles?
Dibbles.
So you can tell I'm not a teacher.
Dibbles. Our district used to be Dibbles, and now we've switched to AimsWeb. Basically the same thing. They're testing basically the same skills. But yeah.
We did.
AimsWeb is now, yes.
Same thing.
We did Dibbles, but we never did Dibbles. Okay.
You did?
No, I dribbled, but I didn't dibble.
We do a lot of dribbling in kindergarten.
I know, right? There's a lot, and some drooling sometimes.
Oh yeah.
We did not use dibbles. We used it. Okay, so we tried it out for a couple of years, and we just didn't really feel like it was giving us the data that was really helpful. So we said, okay, it takes a lot of time. We're not getting any great data from this. We can do our own assessments. And honestly, I mean, I love ESGI. I know you do too. That gives us more information that's helpful and instructs our practice versus doing a dibble. Because a dibble is such a, it's a summative assessment. Okay, it's done. Yeah. And I like that formative assessment better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Same with AimsWeb. It's a district mandate. The kids go do it. We get the data. I look at it. But like ESGI it's way better because ESGI allows me to get data. I could do data every day if I needed to. So I get a much better picture of what my kids are doing and where they are and what we need to work on.
So everybody in the chat is like defending me that I mispronounced that.
I think you're fine. You're fine.
It's not the first. I think I've done that.
You've done it several times, yeah.
Because to me, it looks like dibbles.
Yeah,
it doesn't look like apples to me. All right. Enough about me and my inability to pronounce things correctly.
He's gonna have nightmares tonight.
Thank you.
So, Ashley, we're winding down to our last 2 questions here. We've only got about 7 minutes left. Ashley wants to know how you feel about literature circles. Do you feel it's something your higher students could do?
I don't know. I think I don't know. I think literature circles require a lot more of like a nuanced understanding of what's happening in the text. I don't like them for kindergarten. That's just my opinion. I can see Deedee kind of like I think she's saying no.
Honestly, because with literature circles, usually it's a text that's has a little more depth.
Right.
And when they're reading in small group, let's say your highest reader is reading a J or a K. I mean, you still don't have an in-depth story. It's pretty literal. And so
literature circles on I can run.
Can you walk?
Right.
Can you walk in the hall? Yeah, so I mean, I don't. I mean, and if you are having a student in kindergarten who's reading at a level, text level M, sometimes that maturity level is, you know, I feel like there's more things that you could do. You could pick up a picture book and read that instead. I prefer to have literature discussions where you're doing the reading work, because you can take a book that's a second grade reading level and do it as a whole group. Is what we do with our guided readers. We take a second grade level, perhaps a second grade, maybe even a third grade, sometimes a first grade reading ability. The teacher does the reading work, the students do the thinking work, and you can have in-depth conversations just like you would with a literature circle. So you can do all of that heavy thinking, but you're facilitating the text, so they're not having to do the reading work. They're doing the thinking work, and they're completely capable of that. But I feel that 5- and 6-year-olds need somebody to kind of moderate that, and I'm not sure that they're ready to even moderate those discussions on their own.
Yeah, I think it's a little, it's a lot for 5- and 6-year-olds.
Yeah, if you were like at the West Helm School for Exceptionally Gifted Children, probably, but probably that wouldn't happen in my class.
Right.
All right, last question. Michelle wants to know, how much should a kindergartner be writing at the end of the year?
I think our district, I think our benchmark is like a 3- to 4-sentence paragraph, which paragraph would be, it's a loose paragraph, but I think 3 to 4 sentences is what our benchmark is. But I think every child is different. So I think everybody is going to be writing a little bit differently. But I think, a 3 to 5 sentence paragraph, I know with writing through the year, they do a lot of books. So, I mean, and, I know a lot of first grade teachers will say, well, if they can just come to me writing a sentence, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So it really, I think it depends on your kids, on each child. But I always shoot to have them, doing that 3 to 5 sentence paragraph and doing it really, really well.
Right. So one of the things that I think really helps with books is that it enables them to really talk in detail about a text. So and write in detail. So if they have a book that's 4 pages long, I ask that they have at least 2 sentences on for every picture. You can tell 2 things about this picture. You can tell 2 sentences. So by the time you get to a 4-page book, usually they'll have, like you say, 5 to 6, sometimes even more sentences. Oh, I'm hearing like a alien voice. Maybe it's just on my side. But are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Maybe I need to check my medication. No, I'm hearing voices.
Might want to smell your lotion again.
Okay, I'm better. But does everybody get there at the end of the year? No. Not everybody does. Some students exceed that. Some of them are like seriously the 4 score and 7 years ago. And some students are just working on putting 1 sentence on each page. But by the time they're done, they have 4 sentences. So I would say 4 sentences on one topic that are loosely linked together with beginning, middle, and end. That's the expectation.
Apparently, it's time to stop because Butters is getting antsy because he's not getting any attention. So you'll probably hear him bark at us in a minute.
I shut my door because my dog kept going in and out, and then every once in a while I hear a bang on the door because he keeps trying to get in. So yeah, he's ready to get his mama. All right. Well, thank you so much. Any more questions?
This has been a lot of fun. Huge thank you to Deedee for being with us tonight.
Absolutely.
You were awesome.
Thank you.
Huge thank you to ESGI in the chat tonight. You were a lot of help. There were tons of ESGI questions going on in the chat. There were tons of questions we were not able to get to, and I apologize for that. I compiled them the best that I could and got to as many of them as I could. And now we're ready to do our giveaways.
All right.
Fun times.
So while he's pulling up the raffle copter and getting ready for the giveaways, I'll tell everybody a big secret that Sunday is Jason's birthday. So everybody in the chat, make sure to tell him happy birthday.
Oh, jeez.
And I know he hates that.
Yes. He's like, where are we going to go for your birthday for dinner? I'm like, nowhere. I don't want to do anything.
So everybody tell him happy birthday. He works really hard during Submissions Live.
Yes. Yes, and he gets a lot of flack.
Melinda, I'm going to be 38. She wanted to know.
Wow, you told her. Very good.
I did. I'm not ashamed. All right, so let's do, you want to do the TPT store first?
Yeah.
Okay, so this drawing is for $25 to the Kindergarten Smorgasbord TPT store. And the winner is Amy Sago. Amy Sago, if you're in the chat, please let me know in the chat box that you are here.
So Amy, if you're in the chat, quickly say something to Jason so we can get you your prize.
Your email address is Sago A. Again, that's Amy Sago. While we're waiting for Amy to say hello, let's go ahead with our next drawing. Let's do ESGI. This is for 1 year of ESGI,
which is a $200 value.
Yes. And don't worry, if you do not win tonight, no worries. You can still use the promo code B2442. That will get you your 60-day free trial and $40 off if you decide that you want to purchase at the end of your 60-day free trial.
And Deedee loves ESGI. I love ESGI. It's a phenomenal tool for your classroom. It makes assessing so easy. It saves so much time. I tell people all the time, I can do report cards. I can have them done in a day thanks to ESGI. It just makes everything so easy and quick. It's personalized. You can send letters home to parents. You can send flashcards home. And I know Deedee has created, she is a friend of ESGI, and so she's created, I think it's you have an assessment for every Common Core standard, right, Deedee?
Yes, I have one for every Common Core, and then we've also entered the reading comprehension tests for the guiding readers. So if you have our guiding readers books, well, you don't even have to have those. Like if you read Lily's Purple Plastic Purse, there's an assessment in there for it. So just look under Friends of ESGI Me, and I think it's GR, and then the title of the book. I'm still working on getting them all in, but we have them all in from August to February.
And it's not just literacy, right?
No, it's literacy and math.
Okay.
Yeah.
And math, and yeah. And but you could write your own assessments too. Like if you needed to know if they could tie their shoe, I mean, that could be an assessment that you could track.
And like, I know like one of the things that I always do, like I've created a test for our district sight word list, because I know that's something that is very different across every district and school. So I can create my own sight word assessments. But I think I use almost all of Deedee's because they're already created and I don't have to do any work.
Done.
All right, Amy is here. We got Amy, so
awesome.
Congratulations, Amy. We'll be in touch with you regarding the gift certificate to the store. Now the winner for ESGI is Carrie Town. Carrie Town. If you are in the chat, please let us know.
So Carrie, if you're here, make sure to say something to Jason quickly in the chat so we can get you your 1 year of ESGI. The boss is over here grunting at me.
I just snorted. So there's that.
Hey, Deedee, while we're waiting, real quick, do you want to give everybody your blog website so people can check you out also and find you on Instagram?
Yeah, check me out. That sounds really no. Okay, so I am Mrs. Wills, www.mrswillskindergarten.com. And then let me give you my email because I know that there were a lot of chat questions, and if there's something specific that is writing that you wanted to ask, just email me. Sometimes your emails turn into great ideas for me to post as a blog post, so feel free to ask me questions. So my email is Owens, Owens, 65066. So that's Owens. It doesn't make any sense. Y'all are going like my name.
I know Jason just looked at me like, what?
Owens, Owens. That was the old town that I taught in, was Owensville, and the zip code there was 65066. So it's Owens65066@gmail.com, and it doesn't make any sense at all. But if you email me, I will email you back. If you have any questions?
And we also, every month we try to copy and paste the chat because YouTube is weird about not saving it, and like once you close out of the window, it goes away forever. So we always try to copy and paste it. So we're not always successful, but if we are successful, I'll make sure Deedee gets that
good.
transcript so she can.
I can
see
do a
what-
follow-up. I can do a follow-up post tomorrow or maybe the next day. I say
Okay.
tomorrow. Okay, yeah, but in the next couple of days if you'd like. So that's awesome.
I'll do my best to try to get the chat tonight. Like he said, it doesn't always work.
It's not always cooperative.
All right, so I got Carrie. She is here.
Awesome. Congratulations, Carrie.
Congrats, Carrie. All right, and our final giveaway is for Deedee's Writing Through the Year bundle. Whoop, whoop.
That was my little oops.
The winner is, come on, Rafflecopter, Jenny Booth. Jenny Booth, if you're still here, please be sure to say something to me in the chat. You have won Deedee's Writing Through the Year bundle.
And Deedee, I know we talked about this a little bit last night, but do you want to talk about how you plan to do this?
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. Okay, wait a minute. Wait, blank. I was just thinking that I think Jenny already has our units. So if she has, I think if she has our units, then she's welcome to pick something else that Deanna and I have created, or if it's something that is, or maybe she left already because she was tired of hearing my voice. But yeah, so she can select something else from my store. So whatever, we'll make it good for her if she is still here.
And if she already has it, then is it okay if we pick somebody else?
Yeah, let's do, if she already has it, we'll pick somebody else for this writing unit.
Okay.
My plan is, okay, so Deanna and I have written the units. We wrote them back in 2012, and then we went back and we revised them because we want them to be, we always want things to be a little bit more user-friendly, and we want them to be cute. So we went back and we started revising them, and then we decided we were going to add one more unit. And so what would happen is, when you win, we would put all of these units into not a Dropbox, but Google Drive, and you would get that link. And then as we added files in there, you would be able to pull those out. So as the revisions came in, you would get them in the folder and pull them out. But if for some reason that didn't happen, like you couldn't find the link, or like your computer crashed or something horrible happened, you can just email me and I can get them to you.
And I will say I have all of the ones that they've revised up till now. I have the revisions and the updates, and they're phenomenal. Like, they were phenomenal before, but now that they've been updated, they're much more user friendly. Just they're much better. Yeah.
Well,
So,
and we did revise that. Is Jenny in there?
She is here.
Okay. So Jenny, I will hook you up with something else. Just email me and I'll give you something if you have them already. Maybe she doesn't. She's probably like, I don't care about your writing units. Maybe she does. I think she has them.
Well, I will, Deedee, I will get you Carla's or Jenny's email address so that
Okay.
you guys
Sounds
can
good.
touch base and work that out.
Super.
That's all.
That's it.
We did our thing.
All right. That's it. See, it wasn't so bad at all.
Peace out. Peace out. Thank you so much.
To Deedee for joining us and giving up her an hour of her time and sharing all of her.
Before we go, hold on. And if I'm wrong, let's just act like we're sitting here in the room having a conversation, because I could very well be wrong.
I have no idea what's about to happen.
You want to know what kind of lotion I use because it smells so amazing? Here it is. Can you see it? It's called Avita, and it smells like heaven in a tube.
What is it?
Okay.
What's it called?
That's the question. It's Avita. Avita. I don't think you can see it because I have, Avita. It's really good.
Okay,
It's like
Yeah.
it's heaven in a tube.
Heaven in a tube.
So the question was or is, do I remember correctly that Deedee was one of the first bloggers that you followed back when you first started blogging? Wasn't she kind of like your inspiration to get into blogging and getting the whole thing started?
She was. And then it wasn't too long after I started my blog that Deedee, we teamed up for a little giveaway.
Yes.
It's early on in my blog after I started the blog. And yeah, and it was after that my blog kind of started to take off. Yeah, so.
Good. Well,
yeah.
Thank you. I'm an old timer. I've been around for a while, but you know,
How long have you been?
I started in 2010, and then really started, and I've been going through and looking at some of my old blog posts. Holy smokes! Like, what was I thinking? I got a lot of work to do, but yeah, I mean, you know, started when there was just a few around. So I was lucky. People listened. It was nice.
How long have you been teaching?
I taught second grade for 4 years. I was a literacy instructor. Of course, I can't talk, but I was a literacy coach for 2 years, and then kindergarten for the rest of the time. So 8 years in kindergarten.
Awesome.
Okay. We had that question earlier, and I never got around to it, and it was something I was curious about. So.
I'm not in the classroom this year. I'm traveling and doing professional development, more curriculum writing, and that sort of thing. But I miss. That was one of the things that really hit me from going to Ron Clark, how much I miss being in the classroom. Yeah. And I just had to go back to Missouri on Friday for a friend of ours' parent had passed away. So we went there, but I went and visited my old school, and I saw my old little friends, and it was really hard to say goodbye. But yeah, I miss it. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Well, again, thank you, Deedee.
Thank you.
For being here and for joining us tonight. And as always, thank you to everybody who joined us live. And I know thank you to everybody who will watch this later in the replays on YouTube. And again, just to all of the teachers, you know, I think teachers are the absolute best people in the world. We have the world's most difficult, the hardest job in the world, and we do it every day. And we give it 110%. And so thank you, teachers, for all that you do for your students and for your classrooms and for fellow teachers. And no matter what's happening with the stuff of teaching, remember that it's, at the end of the day, it's all about your kids and giving them the best possible experience that we can every day. And so just remember to love them and hug them and keep your focus on the kids. And take care of each other. I think teachers, we need to do a much better job of taking care of one another and supporting each other and loving each other. So just thank you for inspiring me and for inspiring others and for loving on your kids. So I hope everyone has a fantastic night. Again, thank you, Deedee, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so we will see you again next month. And you can go ahead and mark this on your calendars. March 16th will be the next submissions for Smorgie Live.
And don't miss us in Chicago. Deedee's going to be in Chicago at the Illinois ASCD conference the first week of March. We're going to be there. We're going to have a booth, going to have lots of fun. So be sure to come and see us if you're in the area.
We'll be there. All of us will be there hanging out. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. And so I hope everyone has a great night. And thank you again for all that you do. And thank you, Deedee. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.